the 30,000-foot view of the Second Amendment, right, was to provide the citizens of our country weapons to protect ourselves against government overreach. That was the moral of the amendment, right? That was the root of it. But now we see why that amendment was passed.
Welcome to Gun Owners of America's State of the Second podcast. I'm Kailey.
And I'm John, and today we're here with Frank and Perry from Right to Bear. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic. Appreciate you guys having us on.
Appreciate you being on. So let's start. Tell a little backstory about the company.
You want to kick it off?
You know, we're both insurance agents by trade.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the business for 36 years. I know I don't look like it, and the hair probably tells you different, but that was funny. But 36 years in the business, and we had a great client called Palmetto State Armory, and we were visiting with them one day. Perry actually had earned their trust, and I broached the subject with them as to why they weren't protecting their own in-house customer base. And the light switch came on. Their internal counsel called us back in about 24 hours later, and the rest is history. And we formed a great company called Right to Bear, which is, without a doubt, the best, most cost-effective, value-centered legal defense for self-defense in the country.
So you're insurance agents by trade. You've done that for a few minutes. But Right to Bear isn't insurance, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So we actually started Right to Bear as an insurance product. So going back to our original date, right? Insurance guys by trade, we rolled out an insurance product, had an insurance carrier, had the limitations, the capped limits, as the folks in our industry kind of know it as. After 30 days, we were like, we need to make a switch, right? We were just getting into this business and trying to understand what did the market want, what were not only our members telling us, but what was the market telling us. And so we hit the reset button, relaunched the program in July of 2022 to offer legal defense, but we're an association now. So it's a Right to Bear association. When you become a member of Right to Bear, you get the legal defense in the event of a self-defense incident, right? Whether it's with a firearm or not, right? It's, you could use this water bottle. We have an incident where we've had a member actually use a bag of avocados in their kitchen to defend themselves from a crazed domestic partner. And we've covered that, and I can't obviously speak on the details of that, but 30,000-foot view, that's really what we do. So then we offer non-emergency questions. Hey, I live in South Carolina. I'm going to Georgia to visit family. What are some of the carry laws that are in Georgia? Do I have reciprocity with my permit in South Carolina into Georgia? We offer different discounts to partners that we have all across the country. We have over 1,000 partners nationwide that are in their, instructor range, whatever, promoting Right to Bear in their venue and in their lane. We have over 600 affiliate partners over the internet, whether it be social media influencers, folks on YouTube. It doesn't really anybody. And then, we try to keep our members up to date with the different law changes, with a monthly newsletter. So for instance, like with South Carolina, which we'll talk on, the constitutional carry change, in March, here in a couple of days, our members are going to be getting a full-blown newsletter explaining what transpired in South Carolina when the conversation started all the way through, a couple weeks ago when it was kind of ruled into law. So they get numerous benefits as joining part of our association for, $145 a year is a pretty solid bargain. And so, I'll back Frank by saying that we really are the most cost-effective and value-centered self-defense plan in the country. If you look at what we offer for our rate compared to the other folks in our business, it doesn't really stand a chance. That's just the way it is, and we've been ranked by numerous publications as the best provider in the space. So we're excited about it.
So a lot of people, you go to a class, you hear the pitch for these different things. What happens if I pick up the phone and I call you guys, I get in a self-defense situation? How's that look?
Yeah, so when you become a member, you get access to your member portal. You get a member ID card, a digital one that you can save to your phone. But we've trained our team in the field and in the member portal. We want you to save that number. You're not going to call a card. You're going to go to the number and call the number. Save the emergency hotline as an emergency contact in your phone. And once they call that hotline, it goes directly to one of our attorneys. And that's one of the best things about our program is that it's an attorney-answered hotline. So the second, let's say you're a member of Right to Bear, you have an incident, you just whacked some person with, over the head with a bag of avocados, and you're freaking out like, oh my God, I live in a state where they might lock me up for this. You call the emergency hotline and you're going to get an attorney, which is really important because that confidentiality begins immediately. So you have that attorney-client privilege the second you pick up the phone and call Right to Bear. And so you counsel with our attorney. We've had cases where our attorney has been on speakerphone with the police and our member on the phone. They're holding the phone and the attorney's talking to the police saying, hey, X, Y, and Z, this is what they're going to do. We're going to evaluate what happened, and then we'll get back to you and kind of following the legal procedure. Because what happens, when you've used defense is you freak out. Emotions are running high, and you're just spouting off a bunch of different stuff to 911, the police, and that's where you can get yourself in big trouble. And so having that hotline bridges that gap between what you did and then ultimately the legal system, because call it for what it is. We live our world in this country right now. It's not a justice system. It's legal, right? So you got to have people in your foxhole, right, that are going to defend you.
And John, if I might add, we really spent a great deal of time really just thinking through the attorney network. We hired and put on our team the very best, most passionate 2A attorneys in America. They live and breathe the 2A amendment, and we're very proud of that. We have attorneys on our team that worked in the George Bush administration. We have attorneys that have defended Homeland Security members, and they're passionate about what they do. So they're not hourly guys that just got out of law school answering the phone and trying to, pave their way through some mission that they're really not familiar with. These are real pros at what they do.
So, what do you with your plan after everything is said and done? Let's just say I get in a self-defense situation. I call you guys. What all do you offer for after support too?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is, so say a member has had the issue they've had. They're going to go through the legal procedure of speaking with our attorney. Our attorney's going to go down the line and have that counsel. Frank and I will call them together and say, hey, Mr. Smith, how you doing? Are you okay? We just want you to know that Right to Bear has your back. We are here to help you feel comforted, right? You acted in self-defense. Our attorneys are handling the legal proceedings moving forward. You're in great hands. We go down the credentials of the attorney that's handling the case, and we're there to hold their hand after the fact, right? Because at the end of the day, this goes back to our insurance world and our insurance days is people don't need you until they need you. And if you're not there when they need you, then what are you in the business for, right? Frank says it all the time. He said the moment that we stop caring about our members, I'm done. I'm out. I can go golf or something, right?
Amen.
So, and then you talk about what do we do after the fact? We have, one of our, I guess you can call it coverages. One of our benefits of our program is we offer psychological support. So we offer up to 40 counseling sessions after the incident had happened, if they need it. And we find that to be very important because, as you might imagine, I mean, whether it's avocados or, heaven forbid, you have to use a firearm, you're going to be shook, needless to say. And having somebody there to hold your hand mentally and emotionally, and obviously legally and financially, we're already there for you. But we find that to be an extreme value to our members to show them that, hey, we're willing to, spend an additional $5,000 to $10,000 on counseling for you to make sure that you're okay.
If I might add, John and Kailey, too, we live and breathe with a servant's heart. We want to serve the folks that are a part of our team, not only a part of our team, but our membership base. And so oftentimes in a stand your ground incident, it's a very emotional, high anxiety event. Much like when you have an officer-involved shooting, they typically give the officer 48 hours off to really collect his thoughts before he makes a statement. A lot of our competitors out there right now, and we admire them greatly. There's some great companies out there, but they basically turn the legal issue over to their lawyers, and they don't really hear from anyone else. I personally reach out to our members and just hold on to them, nurture them a little bit, and tell them, look, we're there for you. We want you to understand that you're not in this foxhole alone. We're there with you. We're praying for you. We've got your back. And that's important because we consider ourselves in the Right to Bear Association family. We are family, and that's the long-term goal. Like I said, we stop caring, I get out.
So I know a lot of people hear that insurance or prepaid legal or whatever the kind of terminology is, and they kind of get scared because they don't want a state government or the federal government to require the purchase of an insurance product for a right. And so it becomes a philosophical kind of adoption issue for some people, which I think is valid, right? With all of the government overreach, anytime the government gets involved in anything, we see how that kind of transpires. And we understand that, what starts out maybe as a good intention can very quickly turn into a rogue agency or, a law that goes far beyond what it was supposed to. So how do you address those concerns with people who are trying to decide if they want to take that step into coverage?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is, call our customer service department, right? But when it's us and we're having the opportunity to share with somebody is say, we have a contract, right? You can't just run around and, pardon my poor example here, you can't just run around and shoot people and then call the hotline and be like, oh, self-defense, right? There are guidelines on what you have to be acting in self-defense to qualify for the legal defense portion of our association. I think the peace of mind that we try to preach is we have attorneys that are already they're part of our team already, right? They're sitting around, not literally, but they're more or less sitting around waiting to help you. And so you have to be acting egregiously out of bounds to not get support from our association. That's the reason we structured it as an association, is we wanted to offer numerous benefits besides just being a prepaid legal firm or, an insurance firm. And I think the scary thing that people have seen with the insurance contracts in this space has been the number one concern that me and Frank see all the time is there's a clause that actually allows the insurance company to recoup funds if, they're charged, or if they're convicted criminally. And when they see that, they say, well, why the heck would I, spend money on defense, right? If, or insurance, if I'm convicted and they just pull back all their funds, right? It leaves them with a lot of uncertainty where we don't do that. That's not who we are. That's not our ethos. We're going to do our due diligence on the front end to make sure that, we're protecting, our member, and we're making sure that they were acting in accordance to the law. And I know there's so much gray area with each one of these, self-defense cases, but having a group of leaders, having a company, and having a group of attorneys that are not going to, bend a knee to, somebody that doesn't believe what we believe, or if somebody that's passionate about not believing in what we believe in. I think it gives a lot of people comfort. And, at the end of the day, we provide a very affordable product for people, right? The barrier to entry is not $400 a year, right? It's $145, right? There's a monthly option for $13 a month. We'll finish up here and grab lunch together, and our lunch meal is going to be more than $13, right? And so we say, what is your freedom worth to you? Is it worth, one lunch a month? And that's been a big reason of our growth. We've grown faster than we even thought was possible. And I think there's more people out there, and I'll tell you this just from being in this market, there's more people out there that are looking for this type of coverage than than folks that are skeptical.
And I'll also add that we chose to go the non-insurance route because when you do go with the insurance route, you lose a great deal of control in your claims decisions. We've seen some obvious case precedent around the country. There are some videos out there right now where some of our competitors have walked away from cases where the insurance company decided we can't defend that. It's in our bylaws. You're looking at the bylaws for right to bear. If there's a gray area, we're going to cover our people. And that's the decision we've decided to make. We want to remain in control of how we protect our people. I'll give you a perfect example. We love our heroes in blue. They are true heroes. The men and women that serve in police and sheriff's departments around the country are true heroes in our book. We had a young hero up in Michigan that literally had a situation where he was wrongfully charged with police brutality. His police union and the municipality that offers legal defense walked away from him. They refused at the time to support him and left him on an island by himself, told him to go and hire his own attorney. Fortunately, he had purchased a right to bear association membership months before. We analyzed the case. I actually made a phone call personally to his union, to his municipality. saying,
We did together. It's pretty
we
funny.
don't understand. Can you help me understand why you're not supporting your brethren here? And both said, well, there's some skepticism because he may have had a charge previously he was let off on. I said, well, we're going to make the choice to support him. Fortunately, we did. We hired the very best in legal counsel, pro Second Amendment, and he was acquitted months later.
So how does the attorney selection process happen? I know a lot of people, the biggest criticism that you read in all of the online forums is you have to abide by attorney lists, or if you don't feel comfortable with legal counsel, you can't opt in for changes with some companies. Walk people through that process with Right to Bear.
Yeah. So we have a chief program attorney. She is the lead dog of our attorney network. So everything funnels through her to us. And her name is Kristen Keller. She's out of Golden, Colorado, which is right outside of Denver. She is awesome. She bleeds self-defense protection. She grew up around firearms, and it's been a passion of hers pretty much since she started practicing law. And so what she has done, and with our help and some of our resources that we have is, whether it's previous relationships that one of us have had, through JJE, through some relationships there, through, her Rolodex, we just get on a call with them and we basically interview them and say, hey, do you believe in what we believe in, or are you just looking for another revenue source, right? And so then it's up to me and Frank and Kristen to go through and analyze, hey, are these people going to be there when we need them, right? Because of the stage of our company and the way that Frank and I have structured it, we want to be involved in as many key decisions like that as possible, right? Like Frank said when we were talking about our attorneys, we don't have, fresh out of grad school or law school kids sitting around a phone, waiting for a call one day. I mean, these folks are credible. They've been in the business for years. And at the end of the day, they believe in what all four of us believe in. They believe in the Second Amendment. They believe in everyone's right to own a firearm. And they also believe in everyone's right to self-defense, which is our passion. That's our ethos. That's why we started Right to Bear. If we didn't have a passion about it, this is not something you roll out of bed and say, I'm going to start a self-defense protection company. I mean, you have to have a legitimate passion behind, this product. And I think that's why we've meshed, not to change gears, but we've meshed so well with Palmetto State Armory is, if you look at Jamin's ethos and why he started PSA was he wanted to, put a firearm in the hands of every American at a very affordable rate, right? He wanted to arm America. Well, we have a very similar ethos, ironically, which is why it's been a perfect fit, is, we have a belief in everyone's right to self-defense. I'm a new dad. I just had a baby girl 3 months ago. And I can assure you that if she or my wife, or heck, even my 2-year-old corgi, were threatened for their life, right? Like, I'm not thinking like, oh, I might spend the rest of my life in jail if I defend them. No, like, their rear end's getting popped, right? I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend my family. And having legal protection to back me, it goes without saying. So when we structured it, I wanted to make sure that I had the very best for myself, selfishly.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that we've done that. And I know that in South Carolina, we've got legitimately one of the best in the country to defend us and our members. So exciting.
You know, it's interesting too that in the vetting process, we have over 650 facilities nationally now that recommend and are a part of our Right to Bear family. And through the vetting process, we reached out to some of our facilities and found some really strong pro 2A shooters who are also great attorneys that we vetted, and they decided to join forces with us. And there's an interesting dynamic happening around the country right now, too, that disturbs me greatly. And you both are well aware that there are some real radical liberal pockets happening around the nation right now. For example, Texas, what a great state. We love Texas, our great partners down there. For the most part, Texas would be considered a conservative Christian state. And then you've got the beautiful city of Austin that has sort of gone way, way left. And most of our incidents, from a claims view, just all of a sudden happen right in that Austin pocket, which is really odd. Anytime there's a firearm involved, there seems to be somewhat of a radical view of let's charge this person to set an example. So we sought out the very best in that Austin area to defend our people because it's important that we fight that radicalism around the country. And, not only do we fight it with our words, our family of companies in our venture capital group also spent almost $300,000 last year filing amicus briefs around the country on behalf of the 2A Amendment. We're very proud of that, folks, because I tell you, we are passionate about the freedom of being able to carry.
Yeah. So you brought up Austin and all the charges going through. A lot of people don't know or may know that, district attorneys are based on their win-loss record. And they will try to charge you with the silliest of things just to get a win at the end of the day. How do you guys combat that? Like, the big thing with self-defense situations is you may be written off on everything's good to go, but they'll charge you with, discharge of a firearm in city limits or something silly like that. You've seen that all the time.
Already. We've been in business 3 years and we've seen every example of what you just said. And I think the best way to combat that is you've got to have legal counsel that gives a damn, right? You got to. You have to have guys and gals that believe what we believe in. And I know, we're sitting around and, we want to, say all the right things because, GOA has got a big viewership. No, we're going to stand and we're going to say what we believe. And we have some dang good attorneys that are going to fight, right? When we are right, we're going to fight. That's what we stand for.
Yeah. John, it's interesting that you made that comment.
And we've had two examples, and Frank's going to share on one.
We had a situation in North Carolina, and again, love North Carolina, love our family members there. But there are certain sectors in North Carolina that have changed the laws negatively regarding firearms. We had a member, avid, sportsman, avid shooter, actually had a problem with his firearm and had it serviced with a gunsmith, a licensed gunsmith, thought that they had solved the problem. He got the firearm home and was just checking it and actually had a bullet in the clip, went and made sure that it would basically move from the clip into the barrel, and then he was going to eject it. It jammed. And so in trying to get it unjammed, he put the gun down into a pillow in his home and went to jerk it. Well, it misfired. And we all agree in this country that there's not anything accidental about that. I mean, there's a negligent discharge out there. We understand in most cases it's negligent, but this was a rare case. We actually had paperwork where that gun was being serviced. So he calls the non-emergency number in North Carolina. They immediately show up at his home. And the next thing you know, they're charging him a $300 and some odd fine for firing a gun in city limits. Now, again, he didn't walk outside and put the gun in the air and start shooting. This was literally a very gray, unique situation. So I personally called the police chief in the city. We had a great conversation. He agreed with me. He said, but the laws are not on our side. I wrote a letter and backed them, discussed it with our clients. We went to court and we were acquitted. But again, it takes a village because there are so many things out there right now happening. And you mentioned it. God bless these DAs, man. They're all God's churn, and we need them. But some of them have gone way too far to the left in the name of radicalism. And, we're passionate about bringing that back, pulling the reins back and saying, hey, there's a constitution out there that we need to support, and we need to back those folks like me who love firearms. So,
yeah, couldn't agree more.
So, I know that we're getting a lot into the nitty gritty of your product and product offering, and there's a method behind my madness, right? Like, people have a lot of questions, and I love arming people with education.
Yep.
Because I think that if you're educated, you make quality decisions more often than you don't. Ignorance is a curable disease. Stupidity isn't. That's just kind of
Great quote, by the way.
my kind of baseline for operation. And so the last question that I have, that I know if I was purchasing your product in this moment, would be, okay, I get you're going to defend me criminally, but what about civilly?
Yeah, and that's a great question. We offer both criminal and civil defense, right? One thing that does not make us insurance is not to get the legal jargon here, but the indemnification of an insurance policy. That's what transitions a contract from maybe just a legal arrangement between an attorney and their client into the insurance world, is if they indemnify. And so we provide the defense, but not the civil damage, right? So if you are charged in a civil matter and you owe some type of a judgment, we'll pay for the defense, just not the judgment. And that's how we're able to not have some of those restrictions in our contract. And we understand that's a little bit of a shortcoming, but we surveyed our customers for a year, and that was one of the last questions that we were asked, was the damages part. But from a civil part, right? Somebody comes into the home, you defend yourself. They say, well, my brother wasn't mentally there, right? And, the heartache that you've caused me, and he was going to be the next president of the United States, right? Which obviously wasn't true, but people can say whatever they want now. We will defend the civil trial, right? But if for some reason, the judge deemed that there was some type of a judgment, that's where we wouldn't cover that. And I just want to be honest and upfront so people aren't misled.
And I'll tell you, Kailey, we could not find case precedents in a situation where there was true self-defense and a civil judgment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just think it's you want all of that information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to know that if you're trusting somebody, that you can trust them and you're not going to be blindsided by something later on.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to come on here and be like, yeah, we offer everything, and then somebody has a judgment or they have a case and they said, they come back and say, oh, you've GOA podcast, and it's not. We're going to be upfront and honest, but going back to our hot button that we would sell to anybody is we have great attorneys nationwide that are passionate about defending you, and that's where we're gonna die on that hill.
So we've seen over the last 3-4 years millions and millions and millions of new gun owners, right? And unlike us in this room, not all of them are in the echo chamber of firearms ownerships and understand all the laws completely. So, because a lot of them are dumb, specifically the NFA regarding SBRs and pistol braces and things like that. So if somebody were to be a new gun owner, sign up with you guys, and then accidentally, not knowing the law, break the NFA. How do you guys combat that?
Yeah, so I mean, it would first off, it would need to be in a self-defense situation. Yeah, and then what I would tell you is, and not to skate the question, but the answer is true. Is every case is different. Every incident is different. When it comes to the defense of one's life, we're not gonna turn our back to somebody defending themselves or their family or friends. In whatever case that might be. If they're acting in self-defense, we're going to be there to provide the legal defense to protect them.
So we're talking about the ability to defend yourself. We have to touch on just the massive amount of overreach by the government in off-limits places, in gun-free zones, and making it harder for people to even have the opportunity to defend themselves in the first place. And, we spend a lot of time talking about the on-ramp to the Second Amendment. But once you get on that on-ramp and you join the Second Amendment community, it's so important that you start advocating, because there are way too many places in the U.S. right now where you cannot defend yourself. You can't defend yourself on many college campuses in the U.S., despite the realities of soft targets are just criminal playgrounds. And you see that with, rapes that happen on college campuses. You see that with assaults that happen on college campuses. You see that with, God forbid, you see it with mass murders that can happen on campus because people aren't granted that fundamental right to protect themselves. You guys file amicus briefs. You work and are passionate about the Second Amendment. But I just want to encourage everyone that's listening to the podcast that the best thing that you can do as a gun owner is be active in the fight to ensure that your right to self-defense is present and is not taken away by a government that doesn't want you to have it.
Yeah. I could not have said that better. Thank you for that passionate plea. I will tell you that many of these college campuses, and we're both college graduates. We love the college environment, but they've become centers of radicalism, and it's sad, because here's the just sadness of it all. 90% of the presidents that run these college campuses have armed security. Let me repeat that. 90% of the presidents of these college campuses have armed security. Why do you think that is, John? I'm just curious.
It's because I have no idea.
It's rules for thee and not for me.
Rules for thee and not for me. Come on, guys. That's a fact. I want to use a perfect example. You talk about not being able to have a firearm on a college campus. I want to use Joel Osteen's church in Houston recently. We had a radical shooter come into that church. They were stopped within 2 minutes by a blessed, trained church security force. If there were no guns in that church, how many would have died that day?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, come on. How many would have perished
Yeah.
that day? Potentially hundreds.
Yeah. I mean, we saw another example with Stephen Williford. And
Yes.
he works at GOA.
Yes, good friend.
If he hadn't been able, willing, and present with an AR-15 to stop that mass murder,
Yes.
way more people would have been murdered.
And here's the real sad part, and I don't want to start to carry your narrative. I know we're headed in a lot of different directions today, and again, we're so thankful to be with you too. We're really grateful. But here's the truth. Not one gun has ever sat on a counter and fired on its own. Mental illness is a serious, serious trauma in our country.
Yeah.
And it is something that we support behind the scenes because we know it exists. Our military is going through some serious business right now with PTSD, and of course, that radical government's trying to step in and say you shouldn't be carrying a gun. Well, you know what? God bless our men and women who have gone through serious trauma and are experiencing PTSD. But I can tell you right now that that's government overreach, way, way too far. Mental illness is what we need to work on in our country because it is serious, serious business. And quite frankly, it's not taken serious enough.
Well, just an example of college campuses. So I went to school in Ohio. While I was on campus, I could not carry a firearm.
Yeah.
Against the law. Once I graduated and was not going to a building on campus, I could legally carry through campus because it's state-owned property. The ridiculousness of that if I was not on campus going to a campus event, I was legally allowed to be armed. But the minute I was either a student or going to an event on campus, no more. Insanity.
And this just goes. We could go on and on and on for days. But I'll also go back. God bless our folks in the entertainment business. Hollywood has become a center for radicalism. We know that, and they have a large voice, just like college campuses. They have great influence on our youth. But again, 98% of the major entertainers, singers, actors, actresses around the country all have armed security. Yeah. Why is that?
It's ultimately to protect them.
Yeah. And our great citizens in our great country deserve that same kind of protection for themselves.
Yeah. And, we talk a lot about, what it means to invest in yourself when it comes to investing in that firearm, investing in training, investing in someone to, take on legal fights if you have to use that in firearm and self-defense. But there's a value you're placing on your life when you make those purchases. There's a value in the opportunity cost of your time when you're training. All of these things matter because when you take that step, when you choose to do that, you're taking personal responsibility for your life, your family's life, and what happens to it.
Yeah, and the people around you.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I find frustrating by the elites in Washington, what I find interesting in the elites on college campuses or the elites in Hollywood is they value their own life, but they don't value yours.
Amen.
And it's very important that we understand the philosophical undertones of what's happening, because to say that in order to protect the Second Amendment, it's only legal or it's only in government that we need to be fighting and that we need to be changing the conversation is to neglect the thing that impacts everything else, and that's culture. I can't tell you how many times you go and you talk to somebody in the political space or just in general, and they understand that, culture is upstream of politics. Politics is upstream of the individual. And we have to work as individuals to change culture and to change what's happening in our government if we're going to remain free.
Well, again, so well put. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, there's just so little common sense in this matter. Perry and I were talking on our way over here and just having some great discussions. We always do. And I will tell you right now that when it comes to common sense in government, we've thrown everything out of the window, and it just doesn't exist anymore in the name of radicalism. And I believe that. I'll give you another example. In our space right now, there are certain states in the country that have gone so far left that they look at our product and call it murder protection. And think through this with me for a minute. if you are a part of a municipality or a government and you have someone that's defended by our product versus someone who walks in the door and you have to hire them a public defender and pay for that public defender on tax dollar, wouldn't you want the person who already has the protection?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's common sense. They're spending not millions, they're spending billions on public defenders a year. Who's paying for that, guys?
We are.
We are. So wouldn't you want, even if you are left of center or radical, wouldn't you want someone who walks in the door and has the policy that protects them to get an attorney to represent them versus them having to get a public defender and pay millions?
Well, I think it speaks to a deeper philosophical issue. If they're calling the product murder insurance when murder is illegal and this is self-defense,
Yes.
they don't believe that you have the right to self-defense.
Amen. That's
so,
it.
you know, it's unfortunate that it took so long, but it wasn't very long ago when it was 2008 when DC Keller was at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, you absolutely do have the right to self-defense.
Yeah.
Thank God.
It probably took that long because everyone was probably like, duh. But, you know, these places, these radical pockets in the U.S. are so awful.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe in we the people. They don't believe in your individual freedom. They really, truly believe that your government grants you rights, and that's not the truth. Your rights are constitutionally protected.
Well,
they're not government granted.
You nailed it on the head, and I wanted to talk about this today, and I'm not a Constitution expert like a lot of people are, but I do remember learning about it in high school, and the 30,000-foot view of the Second Amendment, right, was to provide the citizens of our country weapons to protect ourselves against government overreach. That was the moral of the amendment, right? That was the root of it. But now we see why that amendment was passed, right? We see why they put that into action, because they knew eventually, and our founding fathers were just brilliant beyond their own time. You know, they knew that eventually the government was going to, and people were going to try to create power structures for themselves, right? Which is what we're all talking about. Everybody's looking out for themselves, but don't think for one second that those elitists wouldn't do the same to defend themselves or their family, right? They already do, right? How many times, as Frank said, whether it's politicians, professors, presidents at universities are going to have, Hollywood entertainers are going to have armed security staff. But then we're not allowed as, the average bear to protect ourselves. So it's a really unique discussion, especially you start talking about common sense. Well, it's not that's not most of those folks. They don't deal in that world. It's all emotional. It's all, how can I grab for more power and then push down the quote unquote little guy.
Well, just let's just take an example. We brought up Hollywood and we're talking about, things that happened in the elitists. Look at Alec Baldwin. He shot and murdered somebody on the set. First off, but now they're charging the armorer for murder. So
yeah,
what?
He was actually found guilty recently.
Yeah. So why is Alec Baldwin not in jail? He committed murder. He did it. I guess I can say from 1,000-foot view, I was just down in Old Tucson at the movie studio, and I somehow got roped into firing one of the blank guns with them. And the first rule they told me was, hey, you got to aim 4 feet off the person just in case. Why was Alec Baldwin aiming right at the person? Why was it fired and killed? We've seen this in multiple incidents in Hollywood, but why is he not in handcuffs and in jail? Because of, his elitist status, it's just getting pushed to the side. But Hollywood would love to make money off all the gunplay, but not, they don't want us to have it.
You know, I find that topic really interesting, and God bless Alec Baldwin and his family. But, you know, Alec was probably one of the most radical liberal voices 5 years ago in the country, and that tone has changed drastically now. The heat has been turned up. Power and influence, my friend, get you a long way in this country. And sometimes it's not always justice. And we both know that. And it's sad. That's why another reason why we're so passionate about legal defense for self-defense. Not just our product. Go buy one of our competitors' products. Please, just have it. You realize there are probably 100 million people with guns in our country. Now, the government won't tell you that, but that's fact. There are only about 1.5 million people covered for legal defense right now in our country. We have a long way to go to spread our message, but we're so passionate about it. We want you just to have the product. Go buy from our competitor. We just want you to have a product right now because we believe in it so much. But here's the facts. People like Alec Baldwin can afford to hire the very best, most influential legal counsel out there, regardless of whether they're pro 2A or not. He can afford it. The average person that we serve with the Servant's Heart can't. And that's why they need this product.
Couldn't agree more. Now, a little bit ago, you brought up veterans and talking about, you know, how they're attacking on it. I'll let Kailey kind of dive into what we're doing there to help protect the veterans.
Yeah, so this was a big win for us in the month of March. And for 20 years, this has been a fight, which is, you know, another thing where, you know, people have said, you know, no compromise. You don't win ever. It's like we win pretty regularly. We know what we're doing. But it took a 20-year fight for veterans because of the fiduciary rule, which basically was like if a veteran needed assistance, they could have their firearms taken away from them because, you know, they needed help, whether it was understanding their benefits, and they can have their Second Amendment right taken away permanently just because the VA said, you know, hey, this guy doesn't need it anymore. And that's an absolutely tyrannical overreach. And so this last government funding bill, there was a pro-gun rider that made that entire practice stop. So now veterans who need help understanding their benefits are not being punished and you know, losing their rights simply for, you know, being a veteran and accessing the things that they served to get.
Yeah.
And so that was, you know, a 20-year fight. Yes. Should it have taken 20 years? No. But was it worth fighting? Absolutely.
Kailey, we live in the land of the free because of the brave. I'll say that again. We live in the land of the free because of the brave. When we have politicians who work part-time and make $200,000 a year, and our military's out there struggling to make ends meet, yet putting their lives on the line for us, they deserve the utmost in benefits and respect in our nation. And they certainly have been well-trained enough to deserve the right to carry whenever they want to.
Yeah, you look at, you know, you've mentioned, we've mentioned overreach, we've mentioned stupidity, we've mentioned not having common sense, we've mentioned people just, you know, being spiteful over the Second Amendment, right? You mentioned the district attorneys out there that are just simply trying to get W's, right? Just to throw it on the record board, but they're ruining somebody's life in the process. You know, the same thing goes for, you know, some of these VAs, some of these decision makers, right? We have no idea what, you know, where their decisions are coming from to ultimately determine whether this person can or can't defend their family with a weapon. I mean, it's crazy. I was actually, this is a pretty interesting topic and discussion. I was talking with somebody on our team who has a friend that actually had to serve a 15-year sentence over, you know, being, you know, misconnected. I don't know the accurate term, but he was around a murder case, and the individual on our team actually was on the jury for it, and that's how he got to ended up knowing this guy, and they became friends after the fact. But they were, in their break and in their recess, and the jury was discussing what the case might be, and they ended up finding he was not guilty, and they were gonna release him of all charges. And one of the people on the jury, now this is us, the normal everyday folk on the jury, said, "Well, what are we gonna get him for then?" And everybody looked around at the guy and was like, "The hell did you just say? Like, this guy didn't do it, but we're just going to ruin somebody's life for the name of what? Because you didn't believe that he had that right, but you would, right?" And so now you look at our veterans and you look at all these different topics. It's crazy. Who's ultimately pulling the trigger on these decisions that's going to say, "Well, I don't care about you. I'm going to ruin your life, but I'm fine because the position I hold or the income that I have or whatever the case might be." And it goes back to who we are, who GOA is, why we're all here today to talk about these matters, because we're passionate about it. If we weren't passionate about this industry, we all wouldn't. I mean, we could all be doing something completely different, right? Probably making more money, right? But I think the passion and the belief that we have for not only the everyday American, but our veterans, it goes without saying.
I think that you put it right, and I think the problem is we're not serving the letter of the law, but more serving towards an agenda. If you're not agreeing with somebody else's agenda, and that's a big issue that we've seen in this country, and I would say probably the last decade, where we can't have a discussion anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We can't talk and be civil. Growing up, we would talk about topics and things like that, and you'd have civil conversations and you'd work it through. Yeah. And I might not agree with what you say, and you may not agree with what I say, but we're going to shake hands and we're going to drink a beer, or we're going to do whatever afterwards, and we're going to be friends. And that's no longer the case. Either you agree with what I say or you can go away.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger issue in this country right now, is that we can't have those. We have to serve this agenda.
Yeah.
Depending on what the agenda is, we have to serve that. We can't be friends. And I think everybody in this room would say, well, we're the latter. We can have that conversation, and I may not agree with you, and we'll shake hands and we'll go downstairs and grab lunch and grab a beer or drink and hang out and talk.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's either you agree with me or you go away. And we've seen families break up because of this, and we've seen friendships end. How do we get back to that point where we can have that civil conversation?
Well, actually, that's a great question, great topic. There's a gentleman who I've been listening to recently, and I'm getting Frank on the train as well. His name's Patrick Bet-David. He has a podcast and some folks on it, and he had a live show 2 weeks ago with Chris Cuomo and Candace Owens. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend that you do. But obviously Chris Cuomo comes from the left. He had Candace Owens on the right, and both pretty stern in their thoughts, but creating that open dialogue. And at the end of the show, to have Candace and Chris, shake hands and say, "Hey, we agree to disagree, but I don't hate you." Having more influential people hosting things like that, right? Maybe one day we'll get somebody who might not be as pro 2A on a discussion with us 4, and we'll have maybe one person on that end and one person on this end. We don't necessarily have to have a debate and jump all down each other's throats, but to share their opinions and having the open dialogue. And then obviously with all the different media outlets, right, whether it be YouTube, Rumble, now X, formerly Twitter, having individuals have and present platforms for people to share their thoughts and have dialogue. It's going to change, and it takes 20 years, right? Like the case that GOA has been fighting for. It's going to take, a generation to come up. So it's not, the cable news networks just jamming their agenda down our throat. I think different avenues like this is really where you start. And then it's us being the leaders in our community by having those open discussions. You might not love guns and you might be left of center, but I can assure you, you believe in the right to protect your family.
when you look at those who are unwilling to come to the table and at least have a discussion, in 99.9% of those cases, they have a flaw in their argument. So therefore, they're unwilling to be exposed. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I agree.
They're totally unwilling to be exposed. I want to use an example. We talked about coming over here, if I can. Alcohol kills hundreds of thousands of people a year. Would we all agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. Contrary to that, guns don't. There are radical pockets right now that say if you've been involved in a gun incident, we want to remove your ability to ever, not just for a short period of time, but you both know they're trying to pass a law that says you'll never be able to own a firearm. Well, if you get a DUI, should you never be able to own a motor vehicle? Now, you might not think that's a good analogy, but it could be a common sense approach. But there's so much money in the alcohol lobby for these politicians that they're unwilling to make a common sense approach in that argument. But yet we're going to move the Remington plant out of New York State because of their radical laws and move it out of there because we can't put up with their politics anymore. Am I making any sense in that?
Well,
No,
argument?
absolutely. I mean, so to plug one of the other GOA shows for a moment, Tiffany with One in the Chamber did a whole breakdown on the difference between GOA and the anti-gun lobby. And what you find is elitism.
Amen.
And GOA functions off of membership.
Yep.
It functions off of everyday people joining and becoming members. It functions off of everyday members rounding up at their checkout. It comes from everyday people saying, I'm going to participate in the protection and restoration of my rights, and I am going to give to GOA. It is everyday people. Thankfully, we do have some higher dollar donors who can, have the means to give, but on average, $20 is like the average donation for us. We function as a member organization. We are the grassroots gun lobby. Period. Full stop. On the flip side, the George Soroses and the elitists that fund the anti-gun lobby are all deep pocket billionaires who have an agenda to push. And they hire young kids to make it look like they're a grassroots lobby, but that's not where their funding comes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we believe in We the People. We believe that we have over 2 million members and supporters, and that we fundamentally care about the Second Amendment and not just the protection of the status quo, but the restoration of our right. And therefore, we as a collective group are going to call, we're going to email, we're going to show up at town halls, we're going to participate in lobby days. We are going to take that personal responsibility for our rights, and we are going to make a difference. That is not how the anti-gunners operate. They operate out of deceit, out of lies, and out of an agenda of the elite.
I want to know what the root cause is. What's the root? Why are they so anti-gun?
Because it threatens power.
Amen.
But
that's the answer.
But the individuals that are not involved in politics. So besides them owning a big company and having $1 billion worth of coin in the bank, what is their agenda? What's
power?
They just want to be in power.
Because they influence and they purchase politicians. They influence and they purchase political influence, cultural influence, and they operate from that power base.
Is it just to stamp their name that I did X, Y, and Z?
And if they lose their power, if we have an armed citizenry, if we have the ability to protect ourselves, if we have individual liberty, then we're not controllable.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of goes back to, what was the name of that book? I'm so awful at book titles. I read in some book, and it was like, if you are able to grow some of your own food, not even all of it, some of your own food, if you're able to protect yourself and you're able to get married and have children, then you are a threat to elitism, is essentially what the argument boiled down to. Because you value personal responsibility and you take that personal responsibility for yourself and your family. Therefore, you are a threat. You can't be easily controlled. And that is contrary to what the people in Washington and the people in state governments, not all of them, there are some great ones. But the vast majority of them love that elitism. They love the fact that they have armed security and that they're protected. They like the fact that they get to go and walk a red carpet in a gown that costs more than most people's houses, in a dress that says tax the rich. I mean, they love how great it makes them feel. And they don't care about you. They really don't.
Yeah, well said.
So you brought up alcohol, right? So let's just take an example. So alcohol, we had prohibition. We had about 10 years of prohibition, right? How did the crime rate go up during prohibition? Now let's take another example. We had 10 years of the AWB. Did it translate? Did we see crime rate go up because they banned certain types of firearms? No.
Just the opposite.
We saw the opposite.
Yes.
And we're still seeing the opposite. So then why are they going after something that doesn't affect it? I mean, the amount of insanity during Prohibition, and we didn't see the same amount of sanity during the AWB, but they essentially attempted the same thing and it didn't work.
Well, if you look at constitutional carry states, the crime goes down. If you look at where the mass murders happen, it's gun-free zones. If you look, every time they try to come after the Second Amendment, every time that they did arm the citizens, because guess what, guys? Gun owners are law-abiding citizens. We're not going to break the law. Do you know who breaks the law? Criminals. That is the defining characteristic of a criminal, period.
Well, you bring that up and law-abiding citizens owning guns. So I was just watching a video earlier today, and I brought it up in yesterday's podcast as well. Hartford, Connecticut, very anti-gun, right? A group of citizens in Hartford, Connecticut are walking around going, "We are armed and we're cleaning up our streets. We've had enough." And it's working.
Funny.
It has stopped. The crime rate in that area has gone down. They're cleaning up their neighborhood. They're taking their neighborhood back from the gangs. And it's working. But the anti-gun left wants you to believe that armed citizens cleaning up their area is terrorists. It's terrorism. It's bad. It's not going to help. But we're seeing the exact opposite of what they're saying in constitutional carry states. We just saw Ohio's numbers come out, how the crime rate has dropped drastically since they've allowed constitutional carry. We've seen the same thing now in Hartford, Connecticut, where the crime rate has dropped because these citizens are walking around and talking about doing this on a nightly basis too to help protect their neighborhood. We're seeing American citizens want to take their neighborhood back and kick out the criminals. And that's a big thing that we preach is criminals are going to get guns no matter what. Criminals are going to do criminal things no matter what. There's not a law on the books that you can change or add that will stop criminals from doing criminal things. So in Arizona, we no longer have self-checkout at Walmart because people were stealing stuff. Look at California. They're closing down stores. Washington, they've closed down Walmarts, places for people to shop because they're not charging theft anymore. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And what really scares me, and above all, is their desire to control the message. I want to give you a perfect example. Your great state of Tennessee, you and I both have a great fondness. You live there, and I'm fond of Nashville, spent a lot of time there. Nashville used to be a bastion for conservatism, Christian conservatism. Nashville has swung way left now. We all know what happened in a private school recently in Nashville, a tragedy, a true tragedy. Because it went against the left's narrative, they did everything they could to hide the motive of the young lady who went in and created that tragedy. Would we agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
They did everything they could to try and control the message because it didn't fit their narrative. That's what scares me, because it's all about their power, their control. And they've had control over college campuses, Hollywood, and the press for the last 30 years. Total control. And we can thank our conservative message centers out there. I'll bring up Fox. I'm a fan of Fox News. I'm not going to hide that. Pete Hegseth does some work for us, and we love him greatly. But I can tell you right now that we need to thank our lucky stars that we have a balance right now in the press, although it's still small, because there is still a loud voice on the left that controls the narrative, and that scares me because people are influenced, and it's scary. They need to know the truth.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said about the show I watched on the PBD podcast, right? And what we're doing today is now, thank people like Elon Musk to open up Twitter and provide other avenues of independent news sources and media and outlets for people to voice their opinion. There will be people that watch this video and this discussion that are just pissed at the edge of their seat and disagree with everything that we've said from start to finish. But previously, everything was just through one of the 5 major networks, right? Well, now we have the opportunity to spread that message, and it's slowly coming back. But yeah, as more media outlets and more podcasts and information centers come out, the media that has been trying to control the narrative is slowly dying. And I think that we're 5 to 10 years away from the big national media just really just being something that's on a TV channel, but doesn't have the influence that we maybe think that they had.
Yeah, the scariest thing I've ever seen, and I don't know if you've seen this video, is where they take the compilation
Oh my God.
of all the news broadcasts, and they're all saying the same thing.
The exact same
The
thing.
exact same
Where's it
thing.
Who's
coming
leading
from?
that
Yeah.
message? Who's leading that message? Who's leading that
Right.
message? Yeah. And
There's 10 people that are they're playing they're at the top. They're in a dark room somewhere. They got like the scary music. They've sold their souls off, and they're just playing puppetry. And I got a few names, but I'm going to hold off for now.
we can use example after example after example, though, of the media trying to control the narrative. And I always go back to even most recently. I am a Christian conservative. I love people, red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in His sight. That's my view. But let's look at those in radical sectors of the world that constantly use race, because that's the only wedge they have right now. And to me, that continues to be scary, because I don't believe that America is a racist nation. I don't. I will not believe that. Now, do I believe we had a serious issue with slavery? And yes, do I believe we had a serious historical issue? I believe we're beyond that now. And I believe that there's great kindness in the world. But there's that pocket right now, and we don't know where it comes from, and it scares me.
Look where we've come, though.
Oh gosh!
Look at where we've come in that. Like, it's nobody said that country was perfect. Nobody said that anybody was perfect. But you want to talk about progressive, right? Look at the progress we've made there. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We
But
just got to get back to common sense, though.
the fact that we just get that message jammed down our throat, and I think that the more that you all do at GOA, heck, the more that we do, we need to start a show, man.
Yeah.
Get on there and talk.
No, Kailey and John do such a good job. We'll just be guests on their show.
Well, you bring that up. We just did our women's event down in Dallas. The diversity.
Oh, beautiful.
We had women from all race, creeds, there all to, support the Second Amendment. Many of them first-time shooters. Many of them who have never touched a gun before. And it was fantastic to see just the vendors, talking to them. And I had a long conversation with our friends over at Global Ordinance afterwards. And she said, that's the most fun I've had at an event, because it's not, we've all been to range days. You go up to the line, you get the spiel from the person. Hey, this is our latest and greatest thing. And you get to shoot it. And she's like, it wasn't that. I was there teaching. I was going out. I have felt this sense of purpose that I was able to have people shoot their first AR or their first first PCC, or shooting their first handgun, or trying out this or trying out that. And just the emotion she felt afterwards, it just brought great joy to her. And we're seeing that this is the narrative that we are all old white men is no longer. The millions of new gun owners, the millions of new women joining the Second Amendment, the millions of new African-American gun owners are growing. I mean, the Second Amendment is not just about, the narrative that they're pushing about who we are. We are a very diverse group of people.
Well, and that diversity from the left's view scares them so badly that they feel like their power is etching away. And so they've increased the narrative. They've increased their pressure.
Yeah, the Second Amendment is for everyone.
Amen.
And it is an individual liberty. And it is our joy to be able to put on events and to be able to talk to the community at large and see where people are in their journey. From I have the Second Amendment and I'm choosing not to exercise it right now. I'm in that education process, to I just purchased my first firearm, to I own several, to I'm not going to tell you how many I own, to I'm a collector, to, there's a journey there. And it's a fun journey to get to see from our side, from people joining the Second Amendment community. But the even better journey from our perspective is when someone attends their first lobby day, or when someone comes to us and they testified for the first time on a bill, and you see the adrenaline and the rush and the excitement of, I made a difference for myself today, for my grandkids, for my great grandkids. And it's really humbling to see. It's exciting. I'm going to be going to Tennessee's lobby day in my home state in just a couple of weeks. And I'm excited because every year there's one or two people that it's their first time coming, and it's been growing. We've been doing it, like 5 years now in Tennessee. And it's one of my favorite events we do all year in conjunction with the Tennessee Firearms Association. And it's the excitement in the room.
Well,
It's
you talk
Like Christmas
electric.
Day.
Yeah.
you talk,
Better than Christmas Day.
you talk about investing in yourself for self-defense. You're investing in your life. And since we have Right to Bear here, and you guys, your parent company is, and you work with PSA very closely, we're also seeing the bear with, Jamin wanting a gun in everybody's hand. We're seeing the barrier to entry drop, and PSA has done a great job by getting their dagger price so low, so that the barrier to entry is so low and easy to get back in. And that we need to say, and we're seeing that trend across the board. Mm-hmm. With a lot of companies, that the barrier to entry to get in is so low, and they're making very affordable and reliable guns.
And the ability to train at home at your convenience with things like Mantis and others. that's a huge thing in my book. Shocker, guys, I work for a nonprofit. I don't have like endless supplies of money. I can't afford to go and spend a lot of money on ammo and go to the range as often as I want. If I wanted to, I'd be at the range every day. If I had unlimited funds and unlimited time, that would be where I spend my time. And I love that people are also coming out with ways where, for a couple $100, you can save a few $1,000s and train so that when you go to the range and you get to spend all of your time and you get to spend your your time in that aromatherapy kind of sense, you're able to feel so accomplished and you're able to feel empowered when you're in that self-defense situation.
Yep.
Because that on-ramp is the most important thing we can build for someone, whether that's training, whether that is purchasing a firearm, whether that is understanding the responsibility of carrying that firearm. That I always go to that on-ramp. The on-ramp is the most important thing we build.
I love what you said earlier. You talk about the journey that everybody goes on. That just resonated with me so well. And then the phrase, the on-ramp, right? You go from, the training that you put yourself through, whether it be at the range or you don't have the funds or the time or whatever, but you can now train at your home with all the different simulators and all the different technology that's out there. Then you train, then you spend time because you're getting better. You want to learn more, right? Then you start reading, okay, well, maybe I might carry, right? I'm going to go get my if you're in a permit state, I'm going to go get my permit, or maybe you're in a constitutional state, but you want to carry in your car. So I'm going to go and I'm going to train and I'm going to educate myself. And then next thing you know, you're looking into all of the different state laws, and then you're buying new guns and you're going to the range and you're just lighting it up, right? And you're like, man, I've really come a long way. I used to spray it all over the board, but now I'm hitting the bullseye 10 out of 10 times, right? That I don't think you could have said it any better. That really is it's an exhilarating feeling. Especially when you look back over when you started and you have that journey. And that's one of the things that we take pride in at Right to Bear is the training that we want all of our members to take upon themselves, right? Our mission and ethos with our facility and range partners is we offer an affordable product for people to acquire, right? To have protection for themselves. And then we promote our range partners. Hey, go get training. Go join, become a member of, Champion Defense in West Columbia, South Carolina. Go join Triangle Shooting Academy in Raleigh, North Carolina. Go and practice. So when that situation comes up, you're prepared for it, right?
Yeah. I want to touch on something that you brought up that I love, and that's the consistency in which you train your mindset, the consistency in which you train with your firearms, the consistency in which you train in your advocacy. If you constantly, it's not a barrier, it's an exciting thing. I think once you get into it, where you can't wait, and it's easy to have that moment of, this is something that I want to do, and it's a lifelong journey that you get to be consistent in. It's a blessing to live in a country in which we can be consistently voicing our opinions. It is a blessing that we live in a country where we can consistently make a difference in the protection of our rights. It is a blessing that we can be consistent with the training of our firearms and with the education of our firearms and our rights. And I love the fact that when it comes down to it, consistency is just another way of saying personal responsibility. And
Well
that
said.
we as the individuals have that ability.
We're consistent and we'll always be consistent in our message. We're pro 2A to the core. one of the consistencies we have at our mothership, Palmetto State Armory, is that we enable our purchasers in our retail stores every day to round up in support of GOA, and we're very proud of that. We want that message to transcend that we back gun owners of America, and we back the organization, its mission, the pride that goes with that. And we're very proud of that. And thank you both for what you're doing every day to get out there and spread that message that we need. The Constitution is very clear, and we need more passionate foot soldiers like you two in your organization to get out there and proclaim that constitutional message.
Well, thank you for that. Well, they are telling me out there to wrap up. So thank you all for joining us today. Where can people find you? Where are you on social media? Plug away.
Yeah, so visit our website. It's protectwithbear.com. The Right to Bear Association Google search will work. And we're on all the social media platforms, whether it be X, Instagram, YouTube. We just started a YouTube page. We started a TikTok page. Next thing you know, now that might get banned. We'll save that for our next discussion because I'm sure they'll have some changes there.
Yeah.
But yeah, on Instagram or Facebook is, the at Right to Bear Association. If you search Right to Bear on Facebook, we'll come right up. We have a full, breadth of not only what we offer, the cost, but some great information talking about how response times are down, and never before, regardless of your state law, never before have you needed self-defense protection. And going back to our mission, the rate at which we offer it is very affordable, that everyone can afford this protection. They need it because you just never know when that situation might be you, and we're here to have your back, and we believe in that.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for watching. And thank you guys for being here.
No, thank you.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notification on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review on all podcasting hosts. And as always, have a great rest of your day.